You know, there's this thing that people talk about in the cycle of crime.
Yeah.
They talk about pressure, opportunity, and rationalization. Where are we now? Is it at the point of rationalization? Because there's the opportunity to let out the names.
Yeah.
There's the pressure we want to know.
Yeah.
There's the opportunity to let the names out and prosecute those. So where would you say we are now? Rationalizing?
So you can see the tragedy of where we are. We need to rationalize crime, and that's part of the problem that we'll be facing, right? Okay, because just as you said, right, there are three main rationale, right, for crime. It's because people are under pressure, people have opportunities, right, and they rationalize. So part of the deterrent is to make sure that you remove the opportunity, right, and that people cannot rationalize. At the end of the day, they have to face the consequences. So when you allow people to rationalize, because every criminal has a reason for doing certain things, but it's the duty of the state to make sure that we can't mete out appropriate punishment. And that part of the punishment is the naming and shaming.
Don't you think sometimes the state also begins to rationalize, as in, if I punish this person, it will backfire on me, maybe for political reasons or for other reasons. The state might begin to rationalize why they shouldn't punish a particular person for a crime, or name or put out the name of that person for a certain crime committed.
You know, part of the problem that we have in fighting corruption is even the lack of definition. Okay? Because conflict of interest is corruption. Okay? When people, because of personal gain, because of what they need to protect certain interests, right, subject their own personal views above all the national interests, then that's conflict. Okay? So we need to make sure that what is good for the country comes first.
When you say the nation needs to help the president here, I want to go back to the first table you have here. I hope that can also pop up, and that's the table that shows the official corruption, arrests, prosecutors, convictions, stages, assets recovered. If you look at this table, what comes to mind? Because if you look at the names and you look at dates of arrests and appearance in court, and you look at the prosecutor, you have the EFCC all through, and you look at them, all of the names here, over 10 names, and you ask, we look at the column for conviction, there is none, and you also look at asset recovery, there's also none. What does it tell you?
Well, you know, we need to understand certain deficiencies that are on ground.
Is it the deficiency, or are you looking at the prosecutor, in this case the EFCC, is deficient, or because in all of this is the EFCC all through till the very end here?
Okay, you need to look at the magnitude of the problem. You need to look at the resources, the capacity of the EFCC itself to be able to prosecute this war. I'll give the EFCC more than a pass mark at any time, because you need to look at the magnitude of the problem. How many people work in the EFCC? Right? I think maybe less than 5,000. And you are talking of people, virtually crime is all over this country. So, and one thing we also need to understand is that this is not a military regime in which you just say you are guilty, then you start sending people to jail. They need to go through a court process. What the EFCC does is to be able to take people to court. They still need to face the judicial system.
Do you think we're slow here? Because if you look at the dates of arrest and appearance in court, most of them occurred in the year 2015, specifically the first one we have here, June 2nd. And if by now, almost exactly 1 year, we're still talking about nothing has been recovered, no conviction, and you also talk about capacity of the prosecutor, that's the EFCC. What kind of help do they need here? Is it a case of help or a case of chasing what's not?
Okay, let's even look at what arrest has been done and those who are presently being prosecuted. So from like 50 people under prosecution, right? So far in the last 1 year, those involved in public looting, only like 9 convictions have been done. So it's not the fault of the EFCC. Then you need to look at the judiciary. So we need to have some major reforms, right? And from the interview that Professor Sage had with the newspaper concerning the progress they made with their committee, I think part of what they are suggesting is that we need to even have training for some of our judges. Some of them, they don't even understand some of the new laws. I understand that there is a new legislation about the judicial reforms that makes it mandatory that once you start a trial, right, no other injunction could be brought to stall it.
But
yet, we still have some...
In addition, we had a conversation with the NBA president yesterday, as well as Mr. Paul and Nanaba, both a senior advocate, and they did say, talk about the handicap of the judiciary. A case in point is the process of going through cases in courts and taking down notes through by longhand. And we have still this moment not digitalized our courts.
Yeah.
So are we looking in that direction as well?
Yeah, that's part of the handicaps, right? But also I think we need to have special courts, because this is a very fundamental issue. This is part of the major hindrance to the progress of this country.
Are we going to create special courts for everything?
No, we need, because you have special courts even for certain crimes, right? For example, capital market infractions, they have a special court. Okay.
All right. Well, one second. What do you think about the issue of the disparity in the sentencing? For instance, someone steals 1.4 billion naira, he's sentenced to 154 years in prison. Another person steals $8.4 million, he's sentenced to 1 year in prison. How does that relate?
Yeah, that's what I talk about proportionality, right? So you can see that it's not efficient. The punishment that even is given is not proportionate to the crime that's committed. So we have a major issue. So we need a complete overhaul. The punishment that is being given is not dissuasive. Okay? So people just laugh and just mock whatever is kind of sanction that has been meted out. So we need a complete overhaul of some of our laws.
In one of the footnotes, you said it is believed that a total of 6.66 billion has been recovered from campaign fund.
Yeah.
Would you be surprised if eventually, if they publish the actual figures and it's maybe far less than this?
Far less? I don't think it's going to be far less.
What was the margin of error? What are you looking at?
Because sometimes, the figures that we're having, right, just keeps increasing. So I don't see a decrease in the numbers, because what we have in the public domain might not actually be what is going on behind the scenes. So except they want to play games with it, but I don't see any decrease in the figures. And
then we noticed that you have a huge percentage of bank officials who have been seen culpable in this one, because there's a breakdown of military, politicians, civil servants, but bank officials, this is huge.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be the ones who are gatekeeping to ensure that things don't go wrong.
Yeah.
So does that mean that they're a big part of this plot?
Yeah, a lot of things went wrong, right? But essentially, what is the duty of the bank? The duty of the bank is to keep funds. So at the end of the day, you find that if we are even running a system, all the funds essentially have to pass through the banking system. So there is no way that you can have the bank not playing some roles in some of these issues coming up. But what is important is that if you look at those figures, the interpretation to me is that the amount of figures that have so far been recovered, right, majority is coming from the financial institutions and those that have been accused. Why? Because they want to avoid reputational damage.
So in all this, going forward, where lies your optimism that these will get to a logical end with justice served?
I think my only consolation is the body language and the tone at the top. But having said that, the sincerity and the commitment of the president is not enough to wage the kind of war that we're expecting. Okay, by now we expect that there will be roadmaps, there will be concrete policies. You know, because what we are dealing with is not an extraordinary. It's not something that has not been done and people have not achieved success, right? Because to fight any crime, you need certain procedures, like what we call the 4 Ps. You need policies, you need programs, you need procedures, and you need processes. Okay, but we've not been able to define what is the policy, what is the processes, what is the procedure, right? And what are the programs that is going to take us to where we are going. So there's still a lot that has to be done, but 1 year is not enough to determine the success or failure of the administration, because we need to be hopeful, but there's still a lot to be done in terms of giving us concrete roadmaps. Let's know what exactly are we dealing with. Let's have documented programs. Let's have written policies so that everybody is aware of this is what we want to do, and not that you tell us something today and tomorrow you change and try to rationalize, like he said. It's unacceptable.
All right, Abimbola Adeseyoju is the Managing Director of Data Pro Limited, also an anti-money laundering compliance specialist. Thank you for coming on this morning.
It's a pleasure.
Well, we'll be back in just a moment. It's not over yet. We'll have one more to go, so join us again.